Hey everybody, what's up? It's Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. No Nonsense News. Ted. Kick it right off. I'm sure by now all of you guys or most of you have heard of Amy Coney Barrett, and she's in confirmation hearings to become a justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Today they threw her a softball question, which was to recite the five freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment of the Constitution. And this woman is a constitutional law professor, as well as obviously trying to be a justice. And she failed to answer those five things, which brought me to I'm sure by now, if you've watched any of my videos, you've heard me talk about needing to know more about the Constitution. So I had to stop for a second and say, wait a minute, wait, what are they? And I failed to come up with all five as well. So before you bash this lady, take a second, just stop. And how many do you really know? Pause the video, see if you can get all five. All right. But I'm going to read it to you right now out of my little pocket constitution that I have here because, like I said, we all need to be more educated on this constitution that's supposed to govern our lives. But anyway, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's one right there, freedom of religion. Or abridging the freedom of speech, two. Or of the press, three. Or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble, four. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances, five. So, if you didn't know it, I gave giving you a little taste of it right there. Everybody needs to become more educated, especially now with everything changing the way that it's changing. It's the more educated you are on it, the less you are to be taken advantage of. And moving on from that, you got in California. We talked about this. I don't know, maybe a week ago, week or 2 weeks ago, where they were shutting down the electricity on purpose, purposely roving blackouts because of the surge in electricity needed for all the air conditioners. And now they're saying that they're going to do it again to another 200,000 customers, won't have power for days because the high winds, they're afraid would knock the power lines down and cause fires. And with it being so dry and with California already burning, if I haven't said it before, if you've never heard me say it before, get out of California. It's time to go. But anyway, they're cutting off power so that these power lines don't get blown down and start a fire with dry branches and debris, which I mean to me seems like bullshit because you have a crew of guys. That's what you pay when you pay your electric. You're actually paying for the power, obviously, but they pay for crews of guys to go around and clear these lines of branches and debris and things just like that. So I'd be mad if I was in California. Like matter of fact, like I said, I'd get the heck out of California. And like another reason, prepare. A lot of those people that are not going to have power, they probably wish they had some candles. You know what I mean? Some other ways of cooking, things like that. Here's one that really we need to talk about because it's getting serious now. And I'm talking about what's getting serious is you might not see it in the store just yet. It's not right there in everybody's face, but there are huge problems occurring in the supply chain and to the food distribution system of the United States of America. A lot of it can be blamed on everything that's happened in the past months, but whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to point the finger at as blame of it, times of the future are not looking good. And this is an article about how Venezuela ran out of food a couple years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that. You might have heard the articles where they were eating zoo animals and pets, cats and dogs and stuff like that because they couldn't get any food at the stores. And I'm going to quickly run through it with you guys because this article actually, I couldn't say it better myself, really. That's really why I chose this to kind of go through it with you rather than just read it and give you my opinion. Okay, we all like to believe that the United States is on the road to economic recovery and that things are going to get better. Everyone wants to think the store shelves are just a few cargo ships away from being refilled. People want to believe that once 2020 is over, life will return to normal and that we're just having a really bad year. But someone pointed out an article published 4 years ago, and when you look at the things which happened there and compare them to our situation, you may notice some uncanny similarities. Talking about Venezuela. Here's how Venezuela ran out of food. Okay, and this is from Venezuela. Talks about how Venezuela outlawed prepping. Basically, that's how you could tell that it was getting bad. 4 years ago, they talked about how Venezuela was outlawing prepping. Okay, and then now you had the United States. What he points out is one of the uncanny similarities is in the United States when all this went down. We had shortages. That was obviously missing supplies, and first thing they did in the news and media was to shame hoarders or preppers, saying because they were buying such big amounts, that's why there's nothing on the shelf. So there's a similarity right there, right? So here's Venezuela. It wasn't long until the basics were incredibly difficult to acquire. It became even more apparent that the country was falling when long lines for basic necessities such as laundry, soap, diapers, and food became the norm rather than the exception. Thousands of people were standing in line for 5 to 6 hours in the hopes that they would be able to purchase a few much needed items. Okay. In the United States, writers on this website have talked about shelves being cleared back in March. What we maybe see, what we may see in shortage after halting many imports from China, and the fact that in most parts of the country the supply chain is clearly broken. That I couldn't agree with more. This is clear. The supply chain is broken. Some places haven't noticed it just yet, but it's broken. Anyway, Venezuela. Shortly after the story broke to the rest of the world that the propaganda machine shifted into high gear as the government began to ration electricity. Now, I just gave you an example of California rationing electricity. They're saying they're doing it for a fire, but just a few weeks ago, I told you they were doing it because they couldn't, it was really, really hot in California and they couldn't handle the surge of the electricity. So they basically did the same thing that they're saying they're doing now for base preventing of forest fires. But whatever you want to call it, they're rationing electricity. And then they have here, you're looking at we're looking at California, where PG&E, the largest power provider in the state, has shut off power to people in rural areas repeatedly over the past couple of years to prevent wildfires. Millions face the hottest days of summer without electricity, like I just told you. I don't even know why I read it. As stores, this is from Venezuela. Now back to how Venezuela ran out of food and the similarities they go. As stores struggled to provide the essentials to customers, the government stepped in to help. Mm-hmm. And here's to the United States. As our supply chain devolved, it was learned that farmers in the United States were unable to get their products to the market due to logistic issues, closed packaging plants, and a totally different marketplace. The president signed an executive order to force people to go back to work at meat packaging plants, and also tried to organize a way to get food that was just being thrown out to the people who desperately needed it. Okay. So while nobody has insisted farmers hand over their crops without compensation, the government is clearly getting involved in food distribution, obviously. Now back to Venezuela when they ran out of food. Eventually, all the measures of the government of Venezuela, all of the measures that the government of Venezuela took to hide the catastrophic collapse from the citizens could hold up no longer. Right? It only took 3 years for the first report about making hoarding illegal in the once oil-rich country to fall into ruin so extreme that there wasn't enough food for everyone. In the United States, while we are by no means at the point where there is no more food, there are all sorts of warning signs that day could come sooner than expected. Many aspects of our system are crumbling. The supply chain is definitely broken. Stores are already preparing for the second wave of shortages, and a simulation has predicted a 400% increase in the price of food by 2030. I'm sure it's merely coincidence, but Venezuela lost their firearms at around the same time as hoarding was deemed illegal. Most readers of this website know the efforts across the United States to undermine the Second Amendment over the past 9 years that it's been operating. How far will the U.S. fall? This side-by-side comparison is certainly not identical to the crisis in Venezuela, but there are enough similarities that you should be very uncomfortable with our situation. We strongly encourage efforts to become more self-reliant, stocking up on food and other supplies, and frugality in the days ahead. Who are prepared may still struggle, but they'll be far better off than those who are completely blindsided by the continued collapse. And that's the part right there, really, that I couldn't have said better myself. In my own personal life, I feel as though I'm surrounded by people who have cognitive dissonance and just refuse to believe that anything could ever happen. They think that we'll be back to normal. They feel like we're almost back to normal, but as we know, all over the place, there's still people locked down. There's still restrictions. New York's locking down neighborhoods again. It's stores are starting to prepare just in case. You're seeing that a lot. All these places are saying things just in case there's another wave, just in case of this. I think it's time for you, cognitive dissidents, just in case any of this could happen, just in case, I think maybe you should take the time to do what they said. Be more self reliant, stock up on food and supplies, and be frugal with your money. Leave that Starbucks alone. Use that $7 to go get yourself a couple canned food for your pantry. You'll thank me later when food is 400% up. That you've seen it right in the article yourself. 400% increase expected in food this year. That's a big increase. That means if it costed $10, what's a 400% increase of $10? I'll let you do the math. If you buy it today, you're going to save a lot of money. Anyway, I got this next one. I just want to tell you guys because just yesterday, I was tipping my hat to Florida's coach about wanting to fill the swamp down there for the LSU game. And now it seems Florida has come up with a COVID-19 outbreak, and that game has been postponed. So it looks like they found a way to take that freedom back. There's not going to be no full stadium. There's not even going to be a game until December sometime. But I had to get that out there because I felt like that was like a smack in the face to me when I seen it. But anyway, you guys, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a good night. Hope you enjoyed. Let me get a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Be safe.